Reconnective healing, more science. Our local expression is in a 4D bubble where the parameters height, width, length, and time are used to describe observed phenomena. Our local expression is our body and our perception of the reality given to us through our senses and what our mind passively recognizes as our existence. It is the survival mode consciousness that expresses itself through our thought voice. Today, scientists tend to believe that this 4D bubble is a universe, amongst other universes, with different combinations of dimensions in number and quality, with different physics laws interconnected in whole. When you study the space of the atmosphere, you have to consider time in a different way of our time on Earth. You have to consider time relative because its flow changes depending on the perspective of the observer. When you look at the sun now, you observe the sun of 8 minutes ago, because that is the time light takes to travel the distance that separates you from our sun. When you look at the sky, you are observing distinct pasts. Here on Earth, distances measured are so small that the time seems to flow in a constant way. But the distances in space are so large that considering time as a constant is impractical, as proven by Einstein in his relativity theory. In space, the laws of physics are different from the laws of physics on Earth. And that happens also when it comes to the subatomic universe. Its physics laws are awkward and strange, and sometimes they seem like paradoxes. Penetrating deeper and deeper into matter, trying to find the construction block that composes it, the modern physics concluded its no existence. Matter is a combination of molecules, which in turn are combinations of atoms. Atoms are composed mostly of empty space, an extremely small and stable core, which constitutes the source of electric force that attracts the electrons and retains them on a fixed number of orbitals rotating around it. At the nucleus, we can find particles that are in a constant dynamic balance. Those particles are the neutrons and the positrons. The aspect of the atom is like a cloud. So you can imagine how the atom is. You can picture the dome of St. Peter's Cathedral in the Vatican. If that was the orbital of the electron, the nucleus would be a grain of salt, allowing you to imagine the amount of empty space presented in the atom. So we can say that our body is 99.9% of empty space because all atoms are 99.9% of empty space. After all, matter is no substance. It is instead composed of a dynamic relationship between numerous and different particles and subparticles of different qualities, and in which two opposing forces maintain a balance that allows our perception of matter as we know it. Scientists know that light is a spectrum of electromagnetic waves of different frequencies. But what is an electromagnetic wave? Quantum physics explains that any wave is composed of correlated particles. An electromagnetic wave is composed of correlated photons. It's a beam of photons. The photon is a particle of pure light, no mass, moves at the speed of light and interacts with the electrons and the nucleus of the atom, and is responsible for many properties of matter. They mediate the electromagnetic field and enable other particles to interact with other electromagnetic fields and other electromagnetic particles. Light is composed of a large number of photons, being their number what causes greater or lesser intensity of brightness. The visible light of the sun or a lamp is a mixture of many photons of different wavelengths. When the photons pass through the material, different frequencies are transmitted at different speeds. The quantum properties of the particles, being them photons, electrons, positrons, make possible for the particles to behave like waves when they are presented in a large number. Gamma rays are rays composed by photons that have 10,000 more energy than a visible light photon. When removing all atoms within a closed container, scientists discovered that antiparticles responsible for antimatter are constantly created and destroyed in the vacuum. There is some kind of residual activity, particles so intricate that are indivisible, inseparable, like the non-local that sustains the local, the non-local being what you cannot perceive with our senses because it is multidimensional, it's not 4D, it hasn't materialized, so it seems like nothing is there. The empty space is the fabric, as Nassim Haramein explains, of the space-time itself, where our local expression, our 4D expression flow and materialize. The fabric of this 4D universe and all universes. When we're born, we come out like a leaf from a tree. We don't fall to this reality. We come out of this fabric through a creation that is encoded in our DNA. So we are a form that maintains our custom 4D form. You know, in 50 years of our life, no longer exists in you any of your original cells, and yet you are still you. So this code that brings the cohesion to an individual as a body, as a consciousness, and I might even say that probably this DNA is always interacting with that multidimensional field, that quantum field. Physicists now know that they cannot accurately measure two characteristics of subatomic particles simultaneously, because of the fact that one influences the other. In other words, scientists know today that the fact that exists an observer of the particle that interferes with its behavior and in its interconnectivity. Furthermore, as the physicists decide how to watch this particle, it can be observed as a particle or as a wave. So we can say that consciousness and attention have quantum effects. So we can conclude that matter contains energy, so we are energy. Matter vibrates and has an electromagnetic field. We have an electromagnetic field. We are light. And if the atom is 99.9% empty space, then our body is 99.9% empty space. The empty space is an illusion. It is a field, a tissue from which we're born. 99.9% of our body is the tissue of the universe. The consciousness interferes with which observes. Our attention has quantum effects. It is also proved that during a reconnective healing session, it is possible to achieve a state similar to a deep meditation, and the testimonies indicate a higher self-knowledge and a consciousness expansion after beginning the reconnective healing process. So we can speculate. Our DNA seems to be one center of connection. That is maybe why it emits more light after a session, because a feedback system is stimulated, our physical performance improves, our emotional state balances, and our mind quiets down, because we learn to focus in our non-local expression. If we have an intricate connection with this field of infinite information and potential, if the field is part of us also, then we can say we have a non-local existence that accesses the knowingness of that field, all the information. So, it seems that through accessing the field through reconnective healing, we are receiving new levels of information and light, bringing to us coherence to our DNA, balance, and evolution. Maybe it is through enhancing the communication system between our DNA and this field, where these frequencies are like a possibility waiting for our attention to interact with us, that reconnective healing happens. As we learn to pay attention to it, they follow us, as Dr. Eric says. And because the communication between the DNA and these frequencies of high vibration, the DNA incorporates more light, incorporates more information, it gets more harmonious, and the heal comes from there. That is the process of healing that reconnective healing brings to us, allowing progress.